I'm Mike Huckabee from Jerusalem. Tonight, my exclusive interview with former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. He's been under fire recently, especially from the British press, over his involvement in the Iraqi war. Grueling, intense questioning at the recent Chilcot Commission. And the British press has been harsh on him, calling him everything from George W. Bush's poodle to a liar. There have been 4 official inquiries, the most recent, the Chilcot Commission, 6 hours of grueling questions that you have experienced. You said that you would make the very same decisions that you made before. What gives you the resolve to be able to say that, especially with all the pressure that you've had?
I think the most difficult thing in politics is, especially when you've fought and you've won an election and you've come into power, as I did, very much as someone who, in a sense, wanted to please all of the people all of the time. And we'd been 18 years in opposition as a political party. This was a huge moment. We were in there. And as my time went on as Prime Minister, I realized in the end you couldn't please all of the people all of the time. But when it came to the very big decisions, you had to do what you thought was right. And I did what I thought was right in respect of Iraq. And in a sense, the strength to carry on derives from that belief. Now, I'm not, I don't pretend I've got a monopoly of wisdom on it at all, and that's why I've always said I don't disrespect people who took completely the opposite point of view. But that's what I believed, and I did what I believed, and I think as we look at it now, here we are in this region in the Middle East. I think we are better off and safer as a region and a world without Saddam in power.
That was one of the questions. Are the United States, the UK, safer now than we were before we went into Iraq?
In my view, yes, because you've got to ask what would have happened if we'd left Saddam there. The sanctions regime was crumbling, frankly, which was why they were trying to put together a new sanctions regime. We know now from the Iraq Survey Group that Saddam retained every intention and also the intellectual know-how to restart the nuclear and the chemical weapons program. And he would have had several years of very large oil revenues. So he would have had the money and he would have had the intent. And meanwhile, we would have backed off. Now, you can never, you're always speculating, and it's a hypothesis as to what would have happened. But my view, being out here in the region, is that the danger would have been that he would have ended up, in a sense, competing with Iran, both to lead the extreme elements within Islam, and also, of course, proliferating nuclear and chemical weapons.
There have been the critics who said that the destruction of his power in Iraq emboldened Iran and made them even more powerful and a greater threat. How do you respond to that criticism? Because it's been out there.
Yeah, it has been out there, and it's a very important criticism, an important criticism to respond to. As I always say to people, when people say, well, look, Saddam was the strong man that was the brake on Iran, I say, yeah, that was our policy through the 1980s. We supported Saddam against Iran. What was the result? The result was an Iran-Iraq war in which there were 1 million casualties. He developed during the course of that and used chemical weapons. He emerged out of that and invaded Kuwait. The answer to Iran is not to get another extremist, arm them, and try and get him to be the brake on them. The answer is actually to allow people in Iraq to have the same freedom that we do to elect their government, and to have then next door to Iran a majority Shia country that is a country that is democratic. Now, it's very fragile, it's very difficult, but the interesting thing, and this is part of the evidence actually given to this inquiry, is that today in Iraq the political parties are going across the sectarian divide, and actually the worst thing for people standing in the election in Iraq is to be seen as too close to Iran. Now, I think that is a better way to deal with this than to say, let's get another dictator and put them up against this dictator. But the very best way of dealing with their extreme ideas is to put before people a better idea. And one thing, I spend a lot of time out in this region. The biggest myth there is that people in this region, for cultural reasons, for reasons of tradition and history, and there's a whole elite in the West that sit here and say this, these people don't really want democracy. They don't really want freedom. They don't quite know what to do with it. They're not really capable of understanding these concepts. It's nonsense. You know, you talk to the ordinary Palestinian here, what they want is to be able to elect their government. They're no, believe it or not, they're no different from us.
I don't pretend for a moment to understand American politics very well. I certainly don't understand British politics, but why so many of these inquiries? There's been 4, and they've all been relentless. They haven't really mined any new ground.
I think it's partly because we have this curious habit, I don't think this is confined to Britain actually, where people find it hard to come to the point where they say, we disagree. You're a reasonable person, I'm a reasonable person, but we disagree. There's always got to be a scandal as to why you hold your view. There's got to be some conspiracy behind it, some great, you know, deceit that's gone on. And people just find it hard to understand that it's possible for people to have different points of view and hold them reasonably for genuine reasons. And so I think that there's a continual desire to sort of uncover some great conspiracy when actually there's a decision at the heart of it. But there it is.
Part 2 of my exclusive interview with former British Prime Minister Tony Blair next week.